Hey guys, it's Alvin Taveras here from beautiful Puerto Rico. You guys can see the cruise ships in the back. We got the castles over on this end. But I want to talk to you guys about a very important issue. It actually came up in a question I had with a investor consultation where the investor asked me how the Israel and Iran war is going to affect real estate. And that may seem like a very far-fetched idea or a far-fetched question, but there are actually historical implications of some of these conflicts in the Middle East actually affecting real estate. So today we're going to go through some of the historical examples. And more importantly, we're going to talk about what you need to do to make sure you are prepared for the upcoming situation if it were to get more serious. A quick recap of what's happening currently in Iran. So we know that Israel is doing precision strikes, going after key military and political targets. They're also going after the nuclear equipment that they have there, the nuclear bunkers and all that stuff. And so the U.S. looking like it's getting roped into this war. The U.S. has certain capabilities that the Israelis do not have, so they're already providing assistance, but now there's looking to be some additional bombs that the U.S. has that can actually go and completely destroy the nuclear reactors that Iran has. So the couple of things to know that this is a huge escalation of that conflict, but this has been going on forever. In fact, every U.S. president since going back to Clinton had an issue with the Ayatollah there, and it was something that was always on someone's mind. The key there is that the U.S. did not want nuclear war there, and Israel saying that they were a few days away from achieving that goal, and so that ramped up all the activity.
But how close do you personally think that they were to getting one? Because Tulsi Gabbard testified in March that the intelligence community said Iran wasn't building a nuclear weapon.
I don't care what she said. I think they were very close to having.
So here's the thing. When we look at Iran, we have to look at the country and the people and the politics almost all separately. They also have a lot of proxies throughout the Middle East. So Hezbollah, to name a few, I'm not a historian, but they also, Iran has been funding several operations in key areas in the Middle East. And so how this can spill over in other regions, we do not know. At this point, it seems to be more isolated between Iran, but we don't know what the overall effects are going to be. The other big thing is the Strait of Hormuz, where about 10% of all oil in the world goes through that strait, and they have the unique ability to block it or create a blockade there. Now, from what I've seen in the news, is Israel has airborne superiority, so they have control of the skies. So I don't know how limited or capable their Navy is, but that's going to be something to look out for. That is a tool that they can play. That's where they're positioned for. They're on that choke point on the Strait of Hormuz. The other thing is how it creates instability throughout the world. Whether this escalates, where it de-escalates. Iran was more friendlier with Russia, with China. So we have to also be mindful that that larger parties can get involved. We're hoping it stays escalated, but the point is that these are big global geopolitical powers, and it could escalate. So we've seen this in the past where something as simple as what happened in World War I with Franz Ferdinand, a single person got assassinated. No one knew how to de-escalate the situation, and it got completely out of hand. And basically World War II is a continuation of World War I. So these things can definitely escalate. All right, so let's start looking at some historical examples of what happened in the past and what it's going to tell us about what could happen in the future. We're going to start with 9/11. We all know what happened in 9/11. Planes flew into the Twin Towers and the Pentagon, and that created a huge market scare. Keep in mind, it had a big impact specifically on the stock market, where it dropped immediately about 8 points, wiping out billions of dollars in GDP. So a huge disruption in the stock market. So there was a big impact on the stock market, but definitely not with housing. What it did lead to is there was a general sense of uncertainty. It was almost like a micro recession that occurred after 9/11. And so a lot of builders actually slowed down. It actually eventually led to having a shorter supply of inventory. The next major conflict is the Iraq War, which started in 2003. And there were a couple of major significant impacts. The one is that the price of oil went up 300%. And when the price of oil goes up, that's one of the leading indicators for inflation. The price of everything else goes up afterwards. So that's a very big, important factor. The second thing is, as a result of inflation going up, the Fed actually raised interest rates. So when there was a global conflict, the Fed decided to raise interest rates to try to reduce the inflation coming from oil. And as a result of higher inflation, rents went up, cost of new construction went up, the cost of everything went up. It's actually very similar to what we saw here. When the cost of everything goes up, the Fed is likely to raise interest rates to try to dampen the rising cost.
Today's vote demonstrates the growing costs that will come with Iranian intransigence.
The new sanctions ban countries from selling heavy weapons to Iran, target companies linked to Iran's Revolutionary Guard, ask but don't require countries to block Iranian financial activity connected to nuclear activities, and establish a committee of experts to monitor the sanctions.
In 2010, we also placed sanctions on Iran, and that actually has a negative effect as well for them. So it caused supply chain issues, not as difficult as like COVID era, but it's still causing that effect. And there was an impact to housing. Again, this is a precursor of what we're seeing now. So if we saw an impact then, it's likely we're going to see a much bigger impact now. Guys, I hope you guys are okay with this win, but maybe it's an illustration of what we're about to see, where we're overall seeing instability. Whenever there's concern of something getting out of hand, getting bigger, you don't know what's going to happen with how people play their cards. A lot of times when things are uncertain, people run to safety. And real estate is seen as a safe asset compared to a lot of other measures. Compared to the stock market changes every single day, every single hour. It's a ticker going up and down. Housing prices is more or less a lot stable, and there's actual functional use behind it. People need a place to live. And so people will always rent, even in the middle of a recession, even when they don't want to rent. They have to rent. They have to live somewhere. And so what smart investors are doing is they're saying, hey, where are those markets where I can go to safety? And so we've had a lot of success going in more secondary markets that are a little bit under the radar, that hasn't seen a big boom in construction. The markets that are not on the top 10 growth list, but they have that stable turning growth, very unemployment, and very affordable. The key is you want affordable rents. People can afford something like $1,400, no matter what the economy is, especially a couple together. So when there's times of uncertainty, people are more likely to seek to what's more affordable for them. And if you are offering affordable housing, you're going to have the most demand for your properties. So a couple things to look out for. Currently, a lot of oil flows through the Strait of Hamas. If there is a global disturbance there, expect prices of oil to go up. In fact, you should probably just bank that in now. Prices of oil will go up.
If there is a sustained attack on Iran, either from Israel or from the U.S. and Israel, and those Iranian barrels are taken off the market, what does that do to oil prices? And does it have a significant impact in the short term and long term, or just the short term?
There are questions about whether, Middle Eastern OPEC members necessarily want to get drawn into this conflict, right? Like, do they want to be seen to be increasing production just as Iranian barrels are going down? I think that's a fair question to ask. We get more Iranian oil, but I think there is a risk that over time, if what's going on is prolonged, and if we don't get something very stable, you could actually get downside risk to Iranian production.
People are going to reroute their freight. They're going to have to figure out other ways to navigate and play this market. So whenever there's uncertainty, prices go up. So it's very likely that price can get up to $100 a barrel. When we enter these moments of uncertainty, and again, it is windy out here, you also find that lenders take their foot off the gas a little bit. They're already a little bit more particular than they were in the past. But if we enter a time where the prices are shooting up with a lot of uncertainty, a lot of bankers will take the foot off the gas and make lending a little bit more stringent. So my final thoughts on situations, we don't know how extreme this is going to go. Hopefully this tampers down very quickly and doesn't escalate. But if it does, you want to make sure you're getting a property that's giving you safety. This means it has a very wide cash flow, rents are low, very stable employment. It's not part of a peak boom period. It's just a safe property overall. If you want to get more information or learn more about these safer investment opportunities, please feel free to go to buildtorent.com. We'll be happy to schedule a consultation, and you can even see our full inventory list. So guys, thanks for joining us. We'll see you all next time. Take care.